UFC 324 took place last night, and today I'm going to be recapping the entire event. We're going to be talking about every single fight on the card. We're going to start with the main event, and we're going to end with the first fight of the night. We're going to jump straight into it with Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. Now, this was a really good fight. Justin Gaethje just did a little bit too much, a little bit too often, and Paddy couldn't seem to really get things going. He did have one round where he started to kind of pull things back a bit, but ultimately it wasn't enough. Now, we're going to get into it round by round. Starting off with round one, we had wild exchanges early, and Justin Gaethje landed big up against the fence and dropped Paddy to his back. Charles Oliveira style. Paddy got back up, and that seemed to be a lot of this fight. Justin Gaethje knocking down Paddy Pimblett getting back up and throwing some heat back, albeit not really doing too much. From that point forward, Gaethje started stalking forward. Paddy was throwing some leg kicks, but he fell again. He threw a leg kick and fell. Now, I think he was off balance, but it was just chaotic, and it didn't seem like Paddy was being able to keep up with the chaos that Justin Gaethje was throwing at him. After that, Paddy got up and was throwing some uppercuts, but ultimately the uppercuts weren't really doing much. There was also like an accidental eye poke. Justin Gaethje was framing, looking to land a right hand, and he stuck his fingers in Paddy Pimblett's eyes. After about a minute, Paddy was back in the fight, and they were continuing. They were both swinging hard against the fence, and then the round ended, and I had that as 1-0 Gaethje. Coming into round two, we had Paddy landing a lot more leg kicks, and they were seeming to do some damage. Justin was a bit more ploddy, but Gaethje was still landing the heavier shots. Gaethje gets Paddy against the fence repeatedly. He drops Paddy again. Heavy ground and pound to close the round. This was 2-0 Justin Gaethje at this stage. Round three starts, and Gaethje is pressing early again. Paddy's eye is clearly bothering him from the round before. Paddy Pimblett was landing the cleaner jabs, and he landed a nice 1-2 to start the round off. And something that was strange was Gaethje's right hand was looking compromised. Now, it looked like he had a broken hand, but after adjusting it a few times, he just started throwing it again. Now, I don't know if he was just throwing caution to the wind and just going, fuck it, if my hand breaks, my hand breaks, but it seemed like it was definitely bothering him. Because of that, the momentum was briefly shifting. I mean, it looked like Paddy was starting to pull away, but then he landed a low blow. He needed Justin Gaethje in the nuts, which created a pause in action. But when they resumed, Paddy finished the round stronger. And I actually gave round three to Paddy. So at this stage, we were looking at 2-1. Round four starts, and Gaethje is throwing the right hand again. Paddy shoots a sloppy takedown and ends up in a front headlock position. And then he ultimately ends up getting back to the feet. Gaethje lands a right hook and drops Paddy again. I think at this stage we were at 2 knockdowns for Gaethje. And Gaethje was landing a lot more, bloodying Paddy up. Paddy gets back to the feet, and Paddy does actually rock Justin late in the round, but ultimately it's not enough to get him the round, so round 4 is also Gaethje. We're looking at 3-1 heading into the last round. Round 5 starts, they both come out swinging. Gaethje pushes Paddy up to the fence. There's big right hands landing, as they have been the whole entire fight. Paddy's face is a fucking mess at this stage. And Paddy tries to implement his grappling late, but ultimately it just doesn't work out for him. Gaethje clinches it out, pushes him away, lands some more mustard on him, and ultimately Gaethje wins round 5. And new, Justin Gaethje is the new interim lightweight champion. Congratulations, buddy. You get to face Ilia Topuria. We're not going to waste too much time on this. Great fight. Great fucking fight. Fight of the year so far, dude. Fight of the year so far. Fight of the event. Only 2-time interim champion UFC history. Crazy. White House, I don't know. Seems like a good idea. Moving on, we've got Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Now, I think Song Yadong won this fight, and I think Song Yadong won this fight 2-1. We're going to get straight into it. Round 1, Song Yadong opens up with leg kicks immediately. O'Malley is looking sharp with the right early, but he's being pressured. Song Yadong's walking him down. O'Malley's sort of laterally moving, trying to pick his shots from distance. Song matches his aggression and continues to walk him down. And one thing that Yadong was doing early, he was targeting the legs of Sean O'Malley. He was chopping the leg kicks. He was chopping the leg kicks consistently, and he also landed a takedown late in the round, which in my opinion gave him the first round. Song Yadong 1-0. Round 2 starts, and at the start of round 2 it looked like Song Yadong had the speed advantage. He managed to push Sean O'Malley up against the cage, and he scored another takedown. He was landing continuous knees to O'Malley's leg whilst he was clinching him up against the cage. At this stage you could kind of see on Sean O'Malley's face that he was feeling uncomfortable, especially with all of the leg damage that he was taking up until this point, and because of this he was slowing down significantly. They did break, and at that point Sean O'Malley did land a nice left hook, but once again not enough to win him the round. At this point, I had 2-0 Song Yadong. So we were going into round 3, and I was thinking that Sean O'Malley needed a finish here. Round 3 starts, and Sean O'Malley landed a nice combo on Song Yadong, but Song just fucking ate it. And then he went straight back onto the pressure. Sean O'Malley was landing much cleaner shots in round 3. It was a little bit too much too late, in my opinion. Song was bloodied, and you could see on the knee of O'Malley, he was wearing some of the blood from Song Yadong's face due to the fact that he was landing some really, really good knees when Song was advancing. I gave Sean O'Malley round 3, but ultimately I think it was 2-1 Song. Now, Paramount era's here. The UFC want their stars, and they definitely weren't going to be robbing Justin Gaethje last night, so it seemed like it was a little bit of a favour from the UFC here. I don't want to point any fingers, but I personally had Song Yadong 2-1, unanimous decision. Sean O'Malley ultimately won. in the eyes of the UFC? I don't fucking know. Moving on to Derrick Lewis versus Waldo Cortes-Acosta, and this was just fucking sad. It was such a Derrick Lewis way to lose, right? Slip on a banana peel, get ground and pound TKO'd. Waldo Cortes-Acosta has another win where it's like, he's probably going to be getting some hate from this. Round 1, Derrick Lewis throws a jumping switch kick, his patented jumping switch kick. It was very, very low output. Lots and lots of probing on the feet. Quite a significant feeling out process in round 1. Waldo Cortes-Acosta was consistently walking down Derrick Lewis. Lewis slips after a caught body kick. Now, this was similar to the one that happened in the Paddy Pimblett Justin Gaethje fight, but at this stage, Derrick Lewis, he was just on the ground. He was waiting for fucking Waldo Cortes-Acosta to engage with him. And ultimately, Cortes-Acosta didn't want to engage with him, let him up, and that was round 1 to Waldo Cortes-Acosta, very, very convincingly. Now, in between rounds, we heard Derrick Lewis's corner say, dude, this is a fucking sprint, not a marathon here. Waldo Cortes-Acosta wants a marathon here. We need to make it a sprint. So Lewis came out straight away chasing the finish after the corner advice. Waldo times him clean. He cracked him nicely, and he continued to land his jab. He was very accurate with his jab. He was pinging Derrick Lewis's head back multiple times. And at this stage, the weirdest fucking thing ever happened. Derrick Lewis slipped on nothing. He slipped, his leg didn't buckle or anything like that. He was just unbalanced on his own account. Maybe there was water on the floor. But I don't understand how the canvas can be slippy because of a bit of water. There's fucking sweat and water all over the place. Derrick Lewis slipped up on a banana peel, it seemed like, and he hit the ground. And this stage, Waldo Cortes-Acosta did not decide to let him up. He engaged with him on the ground, landing pretty vicious ground and pound to the point where the ref had to step in and call the fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta, round 2 TKO, ground and pound after Derrick Lewis slips on fucking absolutely nothing. Waldo Cortes-Acosta moves on to bigger and better things. Now moving on, we've got Natalia Silva versus Namajunas. Now the UFC website is glitched and is not showing me this fight, so we're jumping on the old Google version. Boring fight. I mean, it was a stand-up fight. There was a decent amount of volume from both strikers, but there was just not a lot happening. Both of these fighters implemented the grappling. Rose had a takedown. Natalia Silva scored a hip toss later in round 3, which probably won her the round and probably won her the fight. Back and forth fight. Not really that interesting. Natalia Silva wins on the scorecards. Moving on to Arnold Allen versus Gene Silva. Now, this was a sick fight. This was a great fight. And just as I said would happen, both of these fighters' stocks rose after this fight. Now, round 1 starts and Silva claims the center of the octagon immediately. Allen is active on the jab on the outside. In the first round, Arnold Allen looked like he was going to show levels to Gene Silva. And he looked like from an early read that he was going to do very, very well in this fight and potentially even win. Allen was very, very active with the jab on the outside. He wasn't engaging in the pocket with Gene Silva, which is what Gene Silva kind of wanted to do. Allen was outlanded Silva through most of the round. And something that I was thinking when I was watching this fight, Gene Silva reminds me a little bit of Petr Yan with a lot more power. He takes a round to get into the fights. He doesn't mind dropping around. I don't know if he doesn't mind dropping around, but he often drops the first round in order to gain the data to come back and pull it off. However, late in round 1, Gene Silva did land a very significant flurry, which wobbled Allen up against the fence, making it a little bit harder to score. But I think ultimately round 1 should have gone to Allen. And round 1 did go to Allen. Round 2 started and Silva was landing heavy with the leg kick straight away. There was power shots coming from both fighters both ways. Gene Silva got a brief takedown, but Allen popped straight back up. And they reset back to the feet where Arnold Allen landed a pretty significant jumping knee. However, Gene Silva's power was clearly too impactful. He seemed to be starting to wear Allen down, and Allen was wearing a lot of the damage. And the round ended with Gene Silva building a lot more momentum. I gave Gene Silva that round. At this point, we were 1-1 heading into the third round. Round 3 starts and Gene Silva increases the pressure once again. He's back on the gas. Elbows landing from inside the clinch. There's a brief takedown, but Arnold gets away, gets back to the feet, and they reset once again. Silva is continuing to press on the gas, and something I noticed is Gene Silva has a very, very underrated gas tank. Both of these fighters have a very good gas tank. Like, they were going at it hard for 15 minutes straight. End of round 3, Silva was landing a lot of big shots, and he cracked Arnold Allen again. And then there was this weird exchange where Arnold Allen had found his way onto the floor, and Gene Silva was posting on his head with his left arm, ready to throw a shot. And rather than throwing a heavy right hand to the head, he decided to get up onto Arnold Allen's back like a fucking surfboard and send it into the air, doing some sort of fucking Michael Jordan pose, dude. People were asking him on Twitter, why the fuck did he do that? And he simply replied with aura farming. So that was a significantly weird moment in the fight. However, Gene Silva was winning that round up until the point, and Gene Silva finished the fight 29-28, winning 2 rounds on the scorecards, and he came away with a unanimous decision win. Gene Silva wins by unanimous decision against Arnold Allen. Great fucking fight. Great fight. Moving on to the prelims now, we had Umar Nurmagomedov versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, I don't want to be too harsh, But if you're looking for a title opportunity, that is not how you get your title opportunity if you're Umar Nurmagomedov. Round 1 started and Umar was firing his kicks. He was pushing Figgy backwards. He just looked like he had Deiveson Figueiredo's number in the striking. Figgy couldn't really get much off at all. There was a lot of scrambles in this fight and Figueiredo defended an early takedown. Umar secured the body lock and tripped him down anyway, and he basically just grinded out the rest of the round with top pressure. Started half guard, ended full guard, and Umar Nurmagomedov won the first round. Round 2 started. Umar was active and outpointing Figueiredo as he was much of the fight when it was on the feet. There was a brief Figueiredo takedown, but Umar popped right back up because Deiveson wasn't able to control him on the ground. Umar was flicking up the leg consistently, lead leg to the head of Deiveson Figueiredo, not landing anything significant but still landing all the same. And to end round 2, Deiveson Figueiredo did land some clean shots, but they didn't really do anything. They didn't really have an effect on Umar Nurmagomedov. And all in all, Umar won round 2. We were currently 2-0 going into the third round. Now starting round 3, both of these fighters had really low output. Umar landed a takedown and basically just camped in guard for the rest of the fight. There's not really anything to speak about in round 3. It was boring. Umar landed a takedown, stayed on top of him, wet blanketed him until the end of the round. Umar Nurmagomedov 3-0. But not enough to get yourself a title shot, little bro. Umar Nurmagomedov needed to do more, especially against the former champion Deiveson Figueiredo, where he was a massive minus 1400 favourite. You got to be doing better than that. You're not getting the next title shot. Moving on to the next fight, Ateba Gautier versus Andrey Pulyaev. Now, I've got a lot to say about this fight. Joe Rogan was really annoying me in this because he was acting like Ateba Gautier was the next Ngannou. He was acting that Ateba Gautier should be finishing and flatlining every single fighter that he faces until he faces someone for the belt, without realising that this kid is 23 years old. I know he doesn't look like it, and I know he's been nuking everyone out like he's not 23 years old. He's 23 years old. 7 years ago, this guy was legally a child. You know what I mean? Legally a child 7 years ago. And Joe Rogan's, oh yeah, but Andrey Pulyaev, who is he? He's a nobody. Who is he beaten? Ateba Gautier should be doing it. Ateba Gautier got 15 minutes of solid experience at a young age against a decent opponent. Pulyaev looked bad against Nick Klein, but everyone has off days. He looked good in this fight. He looked okay. He looked much more improved. In round 1, we saw Gautier, basically the first punch that Ateba Gautier threw on Pulyaev, he floored him. And he nuked him pretty fucking bad. Sent him to his ass, and when he was looking to tee off against the fence, Pulyaev just got away. And in most cases, Ateba Gautier would have found the finish, he would have dropped his opponent, and that would have been that. And then, all of a sudden, this guy's the future, this guy's this guy's that. Joe Rogan needs to shut the fuck up. After he got up, Pulyaev started instantly trying to find some space, which he did do, and he started firing the kicks from range. He was very successful with his body kicks. Ateba Gautier wasn't really blocking the body kicks very well, and Pulyaev was finding the mark. Now, Pulyaev wasn't really moving his head, and that was a significant thing when it came to, it was basically a story of body kicks versus heavy overhands and hooks coming back from Ateba Gautier. Now, the rest of the round was basically just Ateba walking him down, trying to land his shots, whilst Andrey Pulyaev was being fairly elusive. He was getting out of the way of the big heavy shots, and he was landing his kicks at distance. But all in all, Ateba Gautier wins round 1. We got people in comment section saying robbery. It's not a fucking robbery. It's not a robbery at all. Gautier's nuke within the first 10 seconds told us all that we needed to know about round 1. Yeah, Pulyaev got up and he landed some body kicks. Ateba Gautier was walking him down. He was landing the heavier shots and he had more impactful shots, landed more damage, and he won round 1. Round 2 started, Gautier was straight on the gas, pressuring Pulyaev, and Pulyaev was also trying to do the Matador game. He was trying to stay at range because why would you get into the pocket with Ateba Gautier? We know how that's going to end. There was some weird knockdown on the side of Pulyaev, but it was more of a balance thing. He gets back up to the feet. This is something worth noting. Pulyaev got knocked down a fair amount of times within this fight. Pulyaev got knocked down 2 times in this fight, but he managed to pop up fairly quickly. And the reason for that is when he popped back up, he didn't let Ateba Gautier reset, find his mark, tee off against the fence. He got up and he moved straight out of the way and he was back to the centre of the octagon trying to land his body kicks. At this stage, Pulyaev was looking like he was getting a bit tired, but all in all, he survived the round, but he lost the round. Ateba Gautier was 2-0 moving into the third round, in my opinion. Now, round 3 I gave to Andrey Pulyaev. Gautier started by pressuring straight away as he was previously, but he was walking him down, just not landing as much volume. It wasn't as much volume as round 1. However, in my opinion, and this is where the conversation about Joe Rogan is arising, this was a good showing from Ateba Gautier because we found out that he is not just a one-round fighter. He can continue to press in round 3. He can continue to get hit, not go down, and he can continue to walk forward and impose his will on his opponents at 23 fucking years old. And he's only going to get better. He's young. young in the game. He's only going to get better. But as I said, I gave Pulyaev the last round. Ateba Gautier was pressuring early, but Pulyaev was just landing a lot more kicks and growing confident. It was a little bit too much too late, but the kicks were really starting to get through. You could tell that they were hurting Gautier, but this was what I was saying. This is why I was saying it's such a good showing, because he was eating the body kicks and he was still walking forward and he was still imposing his will. Pulyaev was landing the much more significant shots at this stage, but he was still on the back foot. He outstruck Gautier in round 3, and he ultimately won the round based on activity, just because Gautier couldn't really find his shots. Pulyaev was moving, sticking and moving, landing the body kicks, and ultimately that won in round 3, but he lost the fight 2-1. Ateba Gautier won the first 2 rounds, 29-28. Fairly clear-cut in my opinion. People screaming robbery, you're probably just from Russia. Ateba Gautier surges on, the storm continues. Moving on, we had Nikita Krylov versus Modestas Bukauskas now. Who saw this happening? I know Nikita Krylov had a chance of winning, but to say that he was going to win all 3 rounds, kind of crazy to me. Round 1 started and Bukauskas landed early. This was very tit for tat, very back and forth, but Krylov was just landing the much more significant strikes. Modestas Bukauskas was not really finding his mark, and Krylov was threatening the grappling, he was threatening him on the feet, and it just looked like he had more early on in the first round. I think if Bukauskas wanted to win this fight, the first round was imperative for him to pull away and to separate him and to gain the momentum to lead him into the second and third rounds. Ultimately, but Krylov was landing some fairly big shots and he muscled Bukauskas against the fence and he held him against the fence, tiring him out, making him work, making him grapple. And at the end of the round, he stunned Bukauskas with a counter. Bukauskas headed back to the corner at the end of the first round and he looked fairly defeated already. It wasn't a good look for Bukauskas. Round 2 started and Bukauskas came out firing, dude. He came out landing the cleaner shots. He cracked Krylov with a clean 1-2 early in the round, but ultimately this was pretty much the only success that he had in round 2. After that, Krylov pushed him up against the fence and he just took over. He implemented his grappling, he was mixing up the strikes, and he just had Modestas circling and not wanting to be there. And he won round 2 fairly decisively. It was fairly obvious at this point that Bukauskas needed a finish in the last round if he was going to win this fight. Round 3 started, Krylov lands big early and he's gaining confidence at this stage. He starts to walk Bukauskas down and Bukauskas is literally only looking for that one-shot KO punch, which ultimately he just doesn't get. We're nearing the end of round 3 and it seems like Krylov is winning a fairly easy decision here. And with 3 seconds left to go in the fight, he lands a big right hand, Modestas Bukauskas gets dropped, and Krylov follows it up, TKOing him with 3 seconds left in the fight, 4 minutes 57 seconds of the third round. Nikita Krylov is back in the win column, snaps the losing skid as an underdog, TKOs Modestas Bukauskas in the third round. We move on. Alex Perez versus Charles Johnson. Now, I was completely wrong about this fight, and I hold my hands up to that. I was completely wrong about this fight. Alex Perez went in and basically just kicked the shit out of Charles Johnson in round 1. It was a very feint-heavy start. Both of these fighters were throwing a lot of feints. Alex Perez was chopping at the legs, and he was making Charles Johnson forget about his chin. And because of this, Alex Perez landed a really heavy right hand that basically sealed Charles Johnson's fate. He was never able to recover from that right hand. He got badly wobbled, and from that point forward, it was kind of panic mode. Johnson was back on the feet, but he was not all with it. He was circling around the outside of the octagon, and Alex Perez was walking him down, chasing him down, landing the right hand. He scored 2 knockdowns within the first round. Charles Johnson was really wobbled, and it wasn't like this was late in the fight where both fighters were tired and unable to find a finish. Alex Perez was fresh, and he was looking to kill, and he ended up getting the kill shot. The ref looked like he was going to step in at any moment, and it kind of screamed that this could be an early stoppage. People were going to be complaining. But then Alex Perez landed a heavy shot against Charles Johnson inside the pocket, which sealed his fate, sent him to the ground, and the ref jumped in and had to stop it. Alex Perez beats Charles Johnson, round 1 knockout. Who'd have thought it? Fair play, Alex Perez. Significant. When we look at the striking numbers, Alex Perez landed 55 strikes as opposed to Charles Johnson's 8. Alex Perez landed 39 significant strikes to Charles Johnson's 8. Alex Perez landed 2 knockdowns to Charles Johnson's 0. Alex Perez wins as a plus 170 underdog. Very underrated performance against a very underrated fighter. Alex Perez wins round 1 knockout. Unk on unk violence. We fucking love it. What a wild round. What a brutal round, man. What a brutal round. Hats off to Alex Perez. Moving on, we have got the new big face in the UFC, Josh Hokit. Josh Hokit is the new guy at heavyweight. The new interesting guy at heavyweight. Heavyweight's having a bit of a revitalization at the moment. Volta Walker, Josh Hokit. We got new guys in the mix. And Josh Hokit is a very entertaining fighter. He might be doing the Macho Man Randy Savage mixed with Chael Sonnen, but I like his vibe. He's cool, he's exciting, and he's funny. And he fights like a heavyweight Colby Covington with power in his hands. Now, this is all said and done in 1 round. People were saying Denzel Freeman had a chance in this one, that his fight against Marek Bulow was just a bad example of how good he actually is. We had DC on commentary saying that he couldn't get a takedown on Denzel Freeman. However, within the first 10 seconds, Josh Hokit landed a takedown against him. He hung off the back early, very Colby Covington-esque. However, he was landing shots from the back. Colby doesn't really tend to land too much from the back. He usually just weighs him down. He hung off the back early. However, Freeman managed to stand up. Hokit clearly had Freeman's number on the feet at this stage. Freeman just looked like a fish out of water at this point. I said this in my prediction video, but Josh Hokit is going to have a massive speed advantage here. And he did. And he was devastating with the speed, and he was landing very accurately. There was a really awkward knockdown without much clean connection. I don't know what was going on, but this was sort of the start of the deterioration of Denzel Freeman. Denzel Freeman ended up losing this fight after being kicked on the bicep, but we'll get into that in a minute. After the knockdown, Hokit continued to sort of hang off the back, but he was landing heavy shots. And this was the moment. There was two weird moments of this event. Gene Silva riding Arnold Allen like a fucking surfboard, and Josh Hokit, whilst hanging off the back of Denzel Freeman, landed one of the most impressive combos I've ever fucking seen in mixed martial arts, dude. He was on the back, Denzel Freeman was basically in doggy, and Josh Hokit was on top of the back, landing shots, framing off of the back of Denzel Freeman's head, and he reaches around, he slaps the arse of Denzel Freeman, and then he throws a right hand, landing clean whilst Denzel Freeman's on the ground. And at this stage, Freeman is absolutely ruined. He's absolutely spent. He's got nothing left in the tank. He manages to get up, but he is not all there. And as soon as Freeman is up, Josh Hokit lands what seems to be a bicep kick. He kicked him on the fucking arm, and Freeman just sort of seemed to wobble down over to the side of the cage. We heard the 10-second reminder, and at that point, Denzel Freeman just kind of cowered and fell to his knees. There was 1 second left in the round. It was literally 4:59 of round 1, and the ref waved it off. Denzel Freeman was completely ruined. Some people cry an early stoppage. What do you think was going to happen? Was he going to get off the stool? I don't even think he was going to get on the stool. Josh Hokit systematically broke down and ruined Denzel Freeman in this fight. Denzel Freeman is probably going to get cut from the UFC after this. Josh Hokit goes on to cut a crazy promo. He's spitting out rhymes. I can't remember what he said, but he used the famous "you absolutely suck" line from Chael Sonnen, and he called out Waldo Cortes-Acosta. He said, "You're a deadbeat dad to 9 kids." He's going for it. We got shit talk in the heavyweight division. Life is good. Josh Hokit wins by round 1, TKO, beats Denzel Freeman. Denzel Freeman, enjoy the PFL, buddy, if they'll have you. And moving on to the last fight that we're going to be talking about, which is Adam Fugit versus Ty Miller. Now this was also a 4:59 buzzer beater in round 1, which was crazy because we had it back to back. The fight started and Miller was repeatedly stinging Fugit with the right hand. He was very accurate. Ty Miller's got really accurate boxing. He's very rangy. He looked more rangy than Fugit, even though they're basically the same height with the same reach. Looked much more rangy, and he was landing some sick combos on Fugit. He was mixing up his shot selection, and at the end of his combos, he was landing big. It wasn't long into the fight before we realised that there was a massive difference in skill when it came to the feet, and Miller was just basically completely mogging him on the feet. Now, there was one moment where Adam Fugit had a little bit of success. He threw a spinning elbow that landed clean, and it actually cut Ty Miller on the forehead, which caused some blood to start pouring out, but ultimately that was the only success that Fugit had. And after landing that spinning elbow that cut Ty Miller, Fugit got immediately dropped. He got dropped bad, and Miller jumped straight on him, finishing the fight with 1 second left to go. It was another buzzer beater, 4:59 of the very first round. Ty Miller wins by round 1 KO, and we have got another prospect at this stage. Now 7-0 in the welterweight division. We've got another name in the welterweight division to keep our eyes on, and this guy looks good. I know he fought Adam Fugit, but now Adam Fugit has only lost to prospects, dude, in the UFC. Islam Dulatov, Michael Morales, Mike Malott. Ty Miller has passed the Adam Fugit test. He's destined for greatness. Is it actually going to happen? I don't know. We'll see in the future. But Ty Miller put on a clinic here, and he finished Adam Fugit in round 1 with 1 second left to go. Overall, sick event. UFC 324 was a massive success. I thought we were going to be cooked at the beginning because we had some shit going on the fight week. We had Alexander Hernandez versus Michael Johnson get cancelled because of irregular betting patterns. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes obviously getting sacked off from the card, and a bunch of other things leading up into this event that was foreshadowing some pretty bad shit. All in all, none of that mattered. UFC 324 was a great card. Kicking off the Paramount era. We are so fucking back. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, do all of that shit. Thank you very much. This was my event recap. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.